The Indiana Fever just lost back-to-back games against the Dallas Wings, 19-0 run, against the Washington Mystics, 18-7 to start the fourth quarter. Lost the lead, lost the game. We just lost back-to-back games against teams we had no business losing to, even without Caitlin Clark.
Here we go again with another chapter in the ongoing saga of how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, courtesy of your Indiana Fever. The latest episode features a masterclass in poor execution against the Washington Mystics, where a comfortable lead evaporated faster than water in the desert sun. What we witnessed wasn't just another loss, it was a clinic in how to transform a winnable contest into a highlight reel of everything wrong with this organization's approach to closing games. Let me paint you the picture of what unfolded. The Fever controlled significant portions of this contest, building momentum and energy that had fans believing this might finally be the night where everything clicked. Instead, we got treated to another demonstration of why consistency remains as elusive as a unicorn for this franchise. The fourth quarter arrived like a recurring nightmare, and once again, the same familiar characters took center stage in what can only be described as basketball tragedy. The spotlight inevitably falls on Kelsey Mitchell, a player whose relationship with clutch moments resembles oil and water. When the pressure mounts and games hang in the balance, Mitchell transforms from capable scorer to liability faster than you can blink. This isn't personal animosity speaking. This is pattern recognition based on countless examples of crucial possessions that have slipped through her fingers like sand. The mathematical probability of success when the ball finds Mitchell in crunch time approaches the same odds as winning the lottery while getting struck by lightning. But the real crime scene evidence points to Sophie Cunningham standing wide open, arms extended, practically sending smoke signals that screamed for the basketball. Cunningham represents everything you want in a clutch performer, reliable, fearless, and equipped with the mental fortitude that separates winners from those who wilt under pressure. She positioned herself perfectly, created the spacing the offense needed, and waited for the basketball that never came. The imagery of a proven shooter being ignored in favor of a player with a documented history of crunch time failures borders on coaching malpractice. Stephanie White orchestrated this disaster from the sidelines, calling plays that defied logic and basketball common sense. A competent coach recognizes player strengths and weaknesses, then constructs scenarios that maximize success probability. White appeared to operate from an alternate reality, where Mitchell's clutch gene suddenly materialized out of thin air. The decision-making process resembled someone repeatedly touching a hot stove, expecting different results each time. This wasn't strategic thinking. This was stubborn adherence to a failed formula that has produced nothing but disappointment. The post-game interviews revealed the predictable deflection tactics that have become White's trademark. Accountability remains a foreign concept, with responsibility scattered to the winds like leaves in a hurricane. Players receive blame for execution failures, while the architect of these doomed schemes escapes scrutiny. The pattern repeats with clockwork precision. Poor planning leads to poor execution, which leads to poor results, which leads to poor explanations that satisfy nobody except perhaps the person delivering them. Caitlin Clark's facial expression told the entire story without requiring a single word. The camera captured pure exasperation, the look of someone who has invested everything into team success, only to watch preventable mistakes torpedo those efforts repeatedly. Clark represents the franchise cornerstone, the player around whom championship aspirations should revolve. Instead, she finds herself trapped in a cycle of frustration where individual brilliance gets overshadowed by collective incompetence. Her body language conveyed what every rational observer was thinking. Why are we making the same mistakes over and over again? The broader implications extend beyond a single possession or even a single game. This pattern of behavior creates a toxic environment where talented players begin questioning their surroundings. When your best player displays visible frustration with decision-making processes, organizational alarm bells should be ringing at maximum volume. Clark didn't sign up to carry dead weight or watch golden opportunities get squandered by stubborn coaching philosophy. her patience isn't infinite, and continued exposure to these scenarios will inevitably impact her long-term commitment to the franchise. Social media erupted with justified outrage from fans who have endured this torture chamber for far too long. Video clips of Cunningham's perfect positioning circulated like wildfire, accompanied by commentary that ranged from bewildered to furious. The collective reaction wasn't random internet anger, it was the natural response to witnessing something so obviously wrong that it defied rational explanation. Fans invest emotional energy and financial resources into supporting their team. They deserve competent leadership in return. The mathematical reality of playoff positioning adds urgency to every remaining contest. 7th place feels less like a playoff berth and more like a participation trophy for a team with championship-level talent. Each dropped game against inferior competition represents not just a statistical loss, but a psychological blow to team confidence. Players begin pressing harder, forcing actions, and making mistakes that compound existing problems. The downward spiral becomes self-perpetuating when trust erodes between coaching staff and players. Aaliyah Boston continues delivering consistent production while watching her efforts get wasted by factors beyond her control. Boston embodies everything positive about this organization: work ethic, talent, and professionalism that deserves better than what she's currently receiving. Her statistical contributions provide the foundation upon which victories should be built. Yet, that foundation crumbles when other elements fail to hold up their end of the bargain. Boston's frustration might be less visible than Clark's, but it's certainly present and justified. The coaching philosophy appears rooted in hope rather than evidence-based decision-making. Hope that Mitchell will suddenly develop clutch instincts. Hope that the same strategies will produce different results. Hope that talent alone will overcome systematic failures. Professional basketball operates on probability and execution, not wishful thinking. Teams that rely on hope instead of preparation typically find themselves watching playoffs from home rather than participating in them. Mitchell's individual struggles shouldn't overshadow the systemic issues plaguing this organization. She didn't put herself in position to take those crucial shots. The coaching staff made those decisions. She didn't design the offensive sets that repeatedly break down under pressure. The coaching staff implemented those systems. Individual players become scapegoats for organizational failures when leadership refuses to acknowledge their own shortcomings. Mitchell's confidence likely suffers from being placed in situations where she's destined to fail. The contrast between Cunningham's treatment and Mitchell's becomes more stark with each passing game. Cunningham earns trust through consistent performance and clutch delivery, yet gets ignored when those qualities matter most. Mitchell receives opportunity after opportunity, despite documented struggles in similar situations. This backwards approach to roster management suggests either incredible stubbornness or fundamental misunderstanding of player evaluation. Neither explanation inspires confidence in future decision-making. Fan frustration reaches beyond simple disappointment into genuine anger at preventable failures. Season ticket holders and casual observers alike recognize obvious solutions that apparently escape coaching staff attention. The disconnect between fan expectations and organizational execution creates an atmosphere of mistrust that poisons the entire experience. Fans want to celebrate victories, not analyze defeat in excruciating detail week after week. They want to see their favorite players succeed, not watch them get sabotaged by poor planning. The standings reflect this organizational dysfunction perfectly. A team loaded with talent sits precariously in playoff positioning, vulnerable to teams with less individual ability, but superior systems and coaching. Talent without proper direction resembles a sports car with a broken steering wheel, impressive potential rendered useless by fundamental flaws. The Fever possess championship-level pieces arranged in ways that prevent championship-level success. Clark's development trajectory should be the primary organizational focus, ensuring she reaches her astronomical ceiling while contributing to team success. Instead, she's forced to navigate around coaching decisions that actively hinder both individual and collective progress. Generational talents require specialized environments that maximize their unique abilities. The current structure appears designed to minimize rather than amplify Clark's impact, which represents organizational malpractice of the highest order. The psychological impact of repeated close game failures cannot be understated. Players begin anticipating disappointment, pressing harder in crucial moments, and making uncharacteristic mistakes due to accumulated stress. Confidence erodes gradually at first. Then all at once, when patterns become undeniable. The mental aspect of basketball matters as much as physical talent, and this organization systematically destroys player confidence through poor positioning and unrealistic expectations. White's post-game comments follow a predictable script that fools nobody except perhaps herself. Generic statements about effort and execution mask the real issues plaguing this team. Fans have heard these explanations before. They know the difference between legitimate excuses and accountability avoidance. Coaching credibility disappears when words consistently fail to match observable reality. Players lose faith in leadership when promised adjustments never materialize. The contrast with successful organizations becomes painfully obvious when examining how other teams manage similar situations. Elite coaches identify player strengths and construct systems that amplify those advantages. They recognize individual limitations and avoid placing players in positions where they're likely to struggle. They make adjustments based on evidence rather than hope. They take responsibility for failures instead of deflecting blame. These basic coaching principles seem foreign to the current Fever leadership structure. Mitchell's career arc illustrates the importance of proper player development and positioning. She possesses legitimate basketball skills that contribute positively in appropriate situations. The problem isn't her ability, it's the misapplication of that ability in contexts where she's destined to struggle. Competent coaching would recognize these limitations and construct roles that maximize her strengths while minimizing exposure to her weaknesses. Instead, she gets thrust into situations that highlight every deficiency while ignoring every positive attribute. Cunningham's professional approach to these slights demonstrates the character that makes her valuable in crucial moments. She doesn't complain publicly or create locker room drama. She simply continues preparing for opportunities that may or may not come. This level of professionalism deserves respect and reward, not continued neglect. Players like Cunningham form the backbone of successful teams because they prioritize winning over individual statistics or recognition. The organizational culture reflects these poor decisions from the coaching staff down to player development. When merit doesn't determine playing time or crucial responsibilities, players lose motivation to excel beyond minimum requirements. Why sacrifice and improve when those efforts go unrecognized or unrewarded? Why develop clutch mentality when coaches prefer players who lack that essential quality? The incentive structure becomes completely backwards, rewarding mediocrity while penalizing excellence. Clark's visible frustration serves as a warning signal that organizational leadership should heed immediately. Franchise players don't express disappointment lightly. They understand the political implications of displaying negative emotions publicly. When someone of Clark's stature allows frustration to show, it indicates problems have reached critical mass. Ignoring these warning signs typically leads to player departures and organizational upheaval that takes years to repair. The technical aspects of these late-game failures reveal systematic rather than random problems. Poor spacing, predictable play calls, and mismatched personnel create advantages for opposing defenses while hampering offensive efficiency. These aren't execution failures, they're design flaws that guarantee struggle regardless of player talent level. Fixing individual mistakes requires individual improvement. Fixing systematic flaws requires coaching changes that acknowledge and address root causes. Boston's consistent excellence provides the template for how professional athletes should approach their craft. She prepares thoroughly, executes reliably, and maintains composure under pressure. Her example should inspire teammates while providing coaches with a model for what's possible when talent meets preparation and opportunity. Instead, her contributions get overshadowed by preventable failures that dominate post-game discussions and fan reactions. The playoff implications grow more serious with each passing loss, especially defeats against teams the Fever should handle easily. 7th place represents the absolute minimum acceptable outcome for a roster with championship aspirations. Falling below that threshold would represent organizational failure of historic proportions given the talent available. The margin for error continues shrinking while the coaching staff appears oblivious to the mounting pressure. Fan investment in this team goes beyond casual entertainment. It represents emotional commitment to shared success that transcends individual games or seasons. That investment deserves respect through competent leadership and intelligent decision-making. When fans consistently identify obvious solutions that escape coaching attention, it creates a credibility gap that damages the entire organizational relationship. Fans want to trust their team's leadership, but trust requires evidence of competence that remains conspicuously absent. The social media reaction reflects genuine frustration rather than casual criticism. Fans create highlight reels of Cunningham's perfect positioning, not to embarrass anyone personally, but to illustrate how obvious solutions get ignored repeatedly. These viral moments become organizational embarrassments that reflect poorly on everyone associated with the franchise. The internet doesn't forget these failures. They become permanent records of poor decision-making that haunt organizations for years. Mitchell's personal confidence likely suffers from being placed in impossible situations repeatedly. No player wants to become the symbol of franchise failure. Yet that's exactly what happens when coaches refuse to adjust their approach based on evidence. She deserves better than being set up to fail, just as fans deserve better than watching preventable disasters unfold weekly. The solution requires coaching wisdom rather than individual heroics. White's coaching philosophy appears frozen in time, resistant to adaptation or evolution based on new information. Successful coaches adjust their approach when evidence contradicts their assumptions. They prioritize results over ego, effectiveness over stubbornness. They recognize when strategies aren't working and implement changes designed to improve outcomes. These basic coaching principles seem absent from the current fever approach. The talent disparity between roster construction and on-court results suggests systematic underachievement that goes beyond normal growing pains or adjustment periods. This team possesses the individual pieces necessary for championship contention, yet continues producing results that fall far short of expectations. The gap between potential and performance points directly to leadership failures rather than talent deficits. Cunningham's clutch reputation was earned through consistent delivery in pressure situations, yet that proven track record gets ignored when it matters most. Basketball is ultimately about putting players in position to succeed based on their demonstrated abilities. Ignoring those abilities in favor of hope-based strategies represents the antithesis of intelligent coaching. The results speak for themselves. Continued failure in situations that should favor success. The psychological damage from these repeated failures extends throughout the entire roster, creating doubt and hesitation that compounds existing problems. Players begin second-guessing their instincts, pressing too hard in crucial moments, and making uncharacteristic mistakes due to accumulated stress. Confidence becomes fragile when evidence suggests that individual excellence isn't sufficient to overcome systematic dysfunction. Clark's development timeline doesn't align with organizational patience for gradual improvement. Generational talents require immediate excellence in supporting structures, not promises of future competence. Her prime years are too valuable to waste on coaching experiments or philosophical stubbornness. The window for championship contention opens and closes quickly in professional sports, making current failures exponentially more costly than they appear. The contrast between fan expectations and organizational execution creates an atmosphere of perpetual disappointment that poisons the entire experience. Fans invest time, money, and emotional energy into supporting their team with the reasonable expectation of competent leadership in return. When that competence is consistently absent, the relationship between organization and supporters deteriorates rapidly. This pattern of clutch time failures will continue until systematic changes address root causes rather than symptoms. Individual improvements won't fix coaching philosophy problems. Personnel changes won't solve systematic design flaws. The solution requires honest self-evaluation from leadership and willingness to admit that current approaches aren't working. Until that happens, fans can expect more of the same frustrating results that define this franchise's current trajectory. The basketball world is watching this organization waste generational talent through preventable mistakes and stubborn adherence to failed strategies. The damage extends beyond win-loss records to reputation and credibility that takes years to rebuild once lost. Change must come quickly before irreparable harm occurs to relationships with players, fans, and the broader basketball community that expects better from organizations with championship resources and aspirations. The ripple effects of these coaching failures extend far beyond the immediate game results, creating a toxic culture that infects every aspect of team dynamics. When players witness obvious strategic errors being repeated without acknowledgement or correction, it breeds cynicism that spreads throughout the locker room like wildfire. Veterans begin questioning leadership competence, while younger players struggle to understand why merit doesn't determine opportunity allocation. This erosion of trust between coaching staff and roster creates fractures that become increasingly difficult to repair over time. Mitchell finds herself caught in an impossible situation, thrust into roles that expose her limitations while receiving criticism for failures that stem from poor positioning rather than lack of effort. The psychological toll of being asked to perform tasks outside her skill set while bearing responsibility for subsequent failures cannot be underestimated. Professional athletes derive confidence from success patterns, and when those patterns get disrupted by inappropriate role assignments, individual performance suffers across all game situations, not just clutch moments. The strategic bankruptcy displayed in these crucial possessions reveals fundamental misunderstanding of basic basketball principles that should be second nature to professional coaching staffs. Effective offense requires creating the highest percentage scoring opportunities for players most capable of converting those chances. When coaches repeatedly ignore this elementary concept in favor of predetermined hierarchies or personal preferences, they actively sabotage their own team's success probability. Cunningham's professional response to these repeated slights demonstrates the character traits that make her invaluable during pressure situations. Instead of creating drama or demanding explanations, she continues preparing mentally and physically for opportunities that may never materialize. This level of professionalism deserves recognition and reward, not continued neglect from coaching staff that appears incapable of recognizing value when it's standing directly in front of them. The fan base reaction reflects years of accumulated frustration with decision-making patterns that defy logic and basketball common sense. These aren't casual observers offering uninformed opinions. These are knowledgeable supporters who understand the game well enough to identify obvious solutions that consistently escape coaching attention. When your most dedicated fans can predict coaching failures before they happen, it indicates systematic problems that require immediate intervention. Clark's visible frustration serves as a canary in the coal mine, warning of deeper organizational problems that threaten the franchise's long-term viability. Generational talents don't express public disappointment lightly. They understand the professional implications of displaying negative emotions during media coverage. When someone of Clark's stature allows frustration to show, it signals that internal problems have reached critical mass and require urgent attention from organizational leadership. The mathematical reality of playoff positioning adds urgency to every remaining contest, making each preventable loss exponentially more damaging to postseason aspirations. Seventh place represents the bare minimum acceptable outcome for a roster constructed with championship expectations. Falling below that threshold would constitute organizational failure of historic proportions, especially given the talent level available throughout the starting lineup and bench rotation. Boston's consistent excellence provides a blueprint for how professional athletes should approach their craft, combining natural ability with relentless preparation and unwavering mental toughness. Her statistical production remains steady, regardless of external circumstances, demonstrating the reliability that championship teams require from their foundational players. Yet, even her remarkable consistency gets overshadowed by preventable failures that dominate post-game narratives and fan discussions. The coaching staff's apparent inability to learn from repeated mistakes suggests either incredible arrogance or fundamental incompetence, neither of which inspires confidence in future decision-making capabilities. Professional sports demand constant adaptation and evolution based on new information and changing circumstances. Organizations that remain static while competitors improve inevitably fall behind, creating competitive disadvantages that become increasingly difficult to overcome. White's post-game explanations follow predictable scripts that satisfy nobody, except perhaps media members seeking quotable sound bites. Generic references to effort and execution mask the real issues plaguing team performance, while deflecting responsibility away from coaching decisions that directly contribute to negative outcomes. Fans recognize these deflection tactics immediately, having heard identical explanations following previous disasters that followed similar patterns. The disconnect between roster talent and actual results suggests systematic underachievement that goes far beyond normal adjustment periods or temporary setbacks. This collection of players possesses the individual skills necessary for championship contention, yet continues producing outcomes that fall dramatically short of reasonable expectations. The gap between potential and performance points directly to leadership failures, rather than personnel limitations. Mitchell's career trajectory illustrates the importance of proper player development and intelligent role assignment in maximizing individual contributions to team success. She possesses legitimate basketball abilities that create value when properly utilized, but those same abilities become liabilities when misapplied in inappropriate contexts. Competent coaching would identify optimal usage patterns while minimizing exposure to situations where struggle is virtually guaranteed. The organizational culture reflects these poor decisions from top to bottom, creating an environment where merit doesn't determine opportunity allocation or responsibility distribution. When players witness repeated examples of illogical decision-making without consequences or corrections, it destroys motivation to excel beyond minimum requirements. Why sacrifice individual statistics for team success when coaches consistently ignore those sacrifices during crucial moments? Cunningham's clutch reputation was forged through consistent delivery in pressure situations across multiple seasons and different team contexts. This proven track record represents exactly what coaches should seek when constructing late-game strategies, yet somehow gets ignored in favor of hope-based approaches that contradict available evidence. The cognitive dissonance required to repeatedly make these decisions suggests fundamental misunderstanding of probability and risk assessment. The social media explosion following these failures reflects genuine outrage rather than casual disappointment from supporters who have invested significant emotional and financial resources into franchise success. Video clips highlighting Cunningham's perfect positioning become viral content not to embarrass individuals personally, but to illustrate how obvious solutions get consistently overlooked by those responsible for implementing them. Clark's development timeline doesn't allow for gradual organizational improvement or extended coaching experiments that waste precious seasons of her prime years. Generational talents require immediate excellence in supporting structures, not promises of future competence that may never materialize. The window for championship contention opens and closes rapidly in professional sports, making current failures exponentially more costly than they initially appear. The psychological impact of repeated clutch time disasters extends throughout the entire roster, creating doubt and hesitation that compounds existing problems during crucial moments. Players begin second-guessing their natural instincts, pressing too hard when situations demand composure, and making uncharacteristic mistakes due to accumulated stress from previous failures. Confidence becomes fragile when evidence suggests that individual excellence isn't sufficient to overcome systematic dysfunction. Fan investment in this organization goes far beyond casual entertainment, representing emotional commitment to shared success that transcends individual games or seasons. That investment deserves respect through competent leadership and intelligent decision-making that honors the trust supporters place in organizational leadership. When fans consistently identify solutions that escape coaching attention, it creates credibility gaps that damage relationships for years. The technical aspects of these late-game breakdowns reveal design flaws rather than execution failures, indicating systematic problems that require coaching adjustments rather than individual improvements. Poor spacing, predictable play calls, and mismatched personnel create advantages for opposing defenses while hampering offensive efficiency in exactly the situations where efficiency matters most. These aren't random mistakes. They're predictable results of flawed strategic thinking. White's coaching philosophy appears frozen in amber, resistant to adaptation or evolution, based on mounting evidence that current approaches consistently fail to produce desired outcomes. Successful coaches adjust their methods when results contradict expectations, prioritizing effectiveness over ego and results over stubborn adherence to predetermined ideas. These basic leadership principles seem absent from current organizational culture. The standings reflect this dysfunction perfectly, showing a team loaded with individual talent sitting precariously in playoff positioning despite possessing superior personnel compared to most competitors. Talent, without proper direction, resembles a Formula One car with a broken navigation system, impressive potential rendered useless by fundamental operational failures that prevent optimal performance. Boston's professionalism throughout these struggles demonstrates the character traits that separate true professionals from talented individuals who lack championship mentality. She continues delivering consistent production while watching her efforts get wasted by factors completely beyond her control. Her example should inspire teammates while providing coaches with evidence of what's possible when talent meets preparation and opportunity. The contrast with successful organizations becomes painfully obvious when examining how elite teams manage similar situations involving pressure moments and personnel decisions. Championship-caliber coaches identify player strengths and construct systems that amplify those advantages while minimizing exposure to individual weaknesses. They make evidence-based decisions rather than hope-based gambles that repeatedly fail under scrutiny. Mitchell's confidence likely suffers from being repeatedly placed in impossible situations where success probability approaches zero, regardless of individual effort or preparation. No professional athlete wants to become the symbol of organizational failure, yet that's exactly what happens when coaching staff refuses to acknowledge evidence and adjust accordingly. She deserves better positioning, just as fans deserve better decision-making from those entrusted with roster management. This pattern of preventable failures will continue indefinitely until systematic changes address root causes rather than surface-level symptoms. Individual player improvements won't fix coaching philosophy problems that stem from fundamental misunderstanding of strategic principles. Personnel changes won't solve design flaws that make success virtually impossible regardless of who executes the plays. The solution requires honest self-evaluation from leadership and willingness to admit current approaches aren't working. The damage extends beyond immediate win-loss records to long-term reputation and credibility within the basketball community that takes years to rebuild once lost. Other players around the league observe how organizations treat their talent, influencing future recruitment and retention decisions that determine championship viability. Current failures create negative perception cycles that become self-perpetuating without dramatic intervention.